Hi, all. Welcome to Between Two Coaches. We're on a mission to make fitness more human. Snark sold separately. I'm Coach Amanda Katz, and I am joined by my co host,
Coach Nick. I did it right this time. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a fantastic episode. Not even great, just fantastic this week. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome in fitness, something we've all experienced. We're going to give out some listener love, read a review, answer some of your questions, and of course, air a grievance that has to do with gels. But first, we're going to talk about our real life a little bit. And if you notice, I might sound a little off this week. I'm playing hurt, Amanda. I'm a little under the weather. This is basically my Jordan flu game. I've been a little sick for like 6 days. It's been terrible.
was that a basketball reference?
Yeah, Michael Jordan, the guy in the Bulls who scored all the
Got it.
points and
Yeah.
won all the championships. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, understood.
So I'm playing a little hurt, but I'm here. I'm taking.
That's very man of you.
I know.
That's
I've man colds, right? Is that what they call it? My wife always calls it that.
Yeah, she's right.
I'm real tough today, but I have my Olipop here to save me and help me feel a little better.
Thank God you have that banana cream.
It's bananas. Tough drink
Tough
to help
soda.
a tough guy get through a tough moment. But no, I'm here. It's just been a little annoying. I didn't run for like 6 days because it wasn't COVID because I checked, but like just cough, cold in my chest. Didn't feel like running. Didn't feel good running. So I took time off. I am very good about, probably too good sometimes, taking time off when I'm sick. But I don't feel any gain from running, 5 miles while being exhausted in the heat and my body run down because I have to get a run in. I'd rather just rest and then start up again. So I did. But
Yeah, I would argue I don't think there is a too good for this. I think your body, based on what we know, your body needs all the resources it can get when you're sick. So why put yourself out and deplete more energy from Nick, who does it all, right?
yeah, and that's my thoughts. Also, like I said, we've talked about it, I'm very good at resting. Like if it's a rest day or if I'm sick, like I will
Doesn't
just
bother
not run. I do not force it. I've forced it too much in my career for negative gains and also sometimes making sicknesses last forever. So I'm here. I'm powering through for us, for the team.
Well, we appreciate you. And I just know every woman right now is just sending you all the positive vibes. And I mean, maybe you're not a woman, maybe you're sending them anyway because you too are a man with a man cold or you've experienced that. And we see you, we hear you, we support you.
Well, thanks. We're a very supportive podcast of
We
all
are.
man colds. But even more important, someone had a big day in Brooklyn, and her name is Amanda. That's you.
Amanda. Yeah, I did.
What a
I did. I
day.
don't know that it's more important than you being well, but
Well,
yes.
that's why I went first.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I did. I appeared in Brooklyn for the RBC Brooklyn Half, and I had a very nice day.
Great day.
I had a great day,
Yeah.
and I did not feel my best. I may or may not have tripped on a curb a few days earlier, just, not paying attention to life, not even injuring myself while participating in a sport, just existing as a human in
Those
the Lower
taper
East Side.
crazies. Yep.
But I got the green light to, take extra rest, which I did. I told myself this is a great opportunity to eat extra everything. So I did. Heal that bad boy up. And I had a very good day, very positive day. Went in with the mindset that I know who I am and I will never quit. I will always be able to modify. I can always adapt. I can always be in a place where I feel good about the decisions I make for my body in a given moment. I'm not going to regret that decision, whatever decision that is. If I'm not feeling my best, I'm going to pull back, I'm going to walk off. I gave myself those permissions. But as soon as I got on the train en route to Brooklyn, and you know this if you run that race last it's not last stop, but it's there were two stops in New York City, depending on what corral you started in. So as soon as I was en route to Brooklyn at 6 a.m., I was like, you're gonna fuck around and find out today.
And you did, and you ran an amazing PR.
I did.
And those photos of you on the course were just the vibes we love to channel here, and we love to see this happy, smiling face, just cheering, arms out wide. We loved it. I could tell you were having a good day when we ran together in Central Park, and you were like, "Stop goofing around, people. I'm super fit. Let's go." And we're like, "Let's take more photos." And you're like, "Can we just finish this run?"
I really did not. I really, this training cycle, or rather this season, I was really consistent with not doing too much, taking adequate rest, scaled up my nutrition tenfold in and around training. I just felt so good about my body, despite all the little the little niggles that I didn't know were going to happen. I felt really confident in my ability, and I had a PR, another negative split. I had that as and that was from United Half. I don't know how many weeks between the United Half and RBC Brooklyn Half, but it was
2 months.
Even though March 19th, 2 months. You're right, March 17th maybe. So I felt really good. Different course, but I really enjoyed it. And of course, the best part was when I arrived at the finish line, I walked over to my dad's car in Coney Island. He came to pick me up, and my mom was hiding in the front seat.
Oh, that's
She's
the
like,
best.
"Sorpresa, I'm here with your breakfast." I'm like, "Yes." So it was good.
Oh, we love that. We're so proud of you. Way to go, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm proud of me too.
Yeah, that's the most important part. I'm proud of you is great, but you being proud of yourself is the stuff that matters.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate you forcing me to bring it up.
Yes,
As you
because
do.
I wrote it in the Google Doc, so we have to talk about it. That's our trend.
That's the law. That's the law.
That's the law we have here. Lastly, a little frog update for all the people who care. They're still there, but they have become more. I don't know if aggressive is the right word. They're coming on my territory. One night I walked out my little side door here in my backyard, and one was like on my little patio here, and he looked at me and I looked at him, and I thought we were gonna rumble, but we didn't. And he just made his noises at me, and I was like, no. And I tried to point to go back. He wasn't having it, so he eventually left. They're encroaching on my territory. My kids love it.
Whose house? Hermit's house. That's what they're bringing all their people.
They are, but
and by people I mean frogs. Okay, so they're starting to.
It's a turf war.
Infiltrate. Oh, it's a turf war. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like Romeo and Juliet, only without the love story. It's just a war of turf, right? I think I got that story right. I didn't read it. I don't know.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at the Spark Notes later if that's still a thing. But yeah, it sounds like that. Maybe it's Greece where they fought over turf. I don't know. One of those things.
They have AI now. I think that the kids aren't. Are they reading? Are the kids reading?
My kids sort of read.
That's good.
Yeah, there's reading happening. Okay. But yeah, so that's the only update. They're still loud every night, but my white noise machine has defeated their calls. So we're good there, and we'll just see what happens.
Hey, I'm here for that.
Yeah,
I'm here for that. I think that was a good recap of our last week.
Yeah, it was fun. Should we get to some listener love?
Would love that. This right here is from our listener / my athlete,
Ooh.
Kavita. Kavita, if you're listening, and I know you are the listener love. You're the lover of listening. I had a question about pace and cadence. When I started getting into running, someone told me that I should learn my cadence, and then my pace would just develop from that cadence. How true is this? How important is cadence when you are training? It's a loaded question.
Very loaded. But also, there's answers.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
I will start by saying that in running, there's this idea that 180 steps per
The
minute
magic number. Ooh.
is the magic number. And if you hit it, rainbows and unicorns come out of your feet.
And they just hand you a PR, like usually. Like you don't have to finish the race if you just.
Every unicorn comes with a PR. So that's like the problem with listening to other people who are potentially influential. Maybe they've been running for a long time. Maybe they're not well informed or educated. So that is not a Kavita thing. That's an industry-wide issue with fitness, health, wellness, etc. Right? So the someone who she got that from didn't have ill intent, but perhaps they either didn't know better or they weren't with the current education. What are some reasons to, let's say, increase your cadence? Less stress on the joints, more efficient. What were you going to say, Coach Nick?
Oh, no, you go.
Decreased risk of breaking, for lack of a better phrase there. But you don't need to land on that golden 180 number. I believe that myth was debunked several years ago.
Oh, it's definitely been debunked. It was something that happened a long time ago. I was trying to find out who did the research.
Is it Jack? It's Jack, right?
Maybe. I think so. I was trying to find out who. It was either him or someone else. But so it basically they observed like someone running a race in the Olympics and were like, oh, everyone seems to be running 180. That's the number. And that's all. Like that was the whole, like that's the scientific data, right? It's like there was no data. There's no scientific. It's just that number. And then that number, like anything in a numbers oriented sport, it just becomes, well, some Olympians all ran 180 in some race. So we need to do that too. Not taking into account like the genetic differences between, let's say, Olympians and running a distance race and us running like a regular race. So, I think I did a reel about cadence and I'll reshare it. So I think the reality is there's a range. And if you're in that range, you're fine. Like you said, physical therapists and other will sometimes push athletes to modify or try and adjust their cadence if they're getting injured, right? And that's a reason to do it. But like, if you're running 172, if you calculate it and you're like, oh, if I can increase my cadence by 8 steps per minute, I'll run faster. That might not be the case, right? You might be doing more harm, chopping up your stride, changing it, doing things. I think if you do a healthy dose of strides each week and you do speed workouts and you just, you're not running some sort of outlier like 220 or like, 145 or 150, as long as you're not running like so far off. Like if you're within a range, it's fine, right? That's okay. Like it doesn't necessarily mean you have to change it. And sometimes your cadence just gets better over time training, right? So, and other things too, like I would always, if you really cared about your cadence, it's easy to check yourself. You just run, and over the course of 60 seconds, you count how many times your left foot lands. And then you multiply by 2. And that's it. So don't like rely on your watch who says your cadence is this or that. Because like sometimes we do need data to help us. We obviously can't, calculate our pace by running, if we're not even know how far the distance is or things like that. But like you can easily do this. So just do it, right? Don't worry. Don't rely on some erroneous data. But otherwise, I don't think, unless there's some outlier, there's no reason to change unless you're getting injured or other things are off that would then indicate, hey, it could be beneficial to try and shorten or lengthen your stride.
With you on that.
But love the question. I think it's a great question because it is something that always comes up and everyone always says 180, just like everyone always talks about zone 2 and everyone talks about these random things that are numbers that we just get obsessed about and end up, confusing the running community because they're like, oh, well, I'm not running 180, so I got to fix it.
That's right. That's right. Such a great question. Shout out to Kavita.
Shout out.
Thanks for doing the work.
Yes.
And listening to us. Let's share a review.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll take it. It's from Electrica 1215. And she writes, I'm not that Susan. I'm a 54-year-old runner, 9-time half marathoner who found this podcast and everything I've heard resonates with what I believe in, health versus performance. You don't have to do everyone is doing, and goals are not linear. Thank you, coaches, for validating the feelings of runners who are doing this sport for fun. We love this review so much. There is a place for all runners. Fun is absolutely a part of this. It doesn't matter what speed you're going. You should always be having fun. Like, it doesn't matter if you're training for a PR or, at the top of the beginning, at the front of the race, or the back of the race, or the middle. Fun. Like, have fun. And, like, trying to debunk some of this obsessive information in the community to help you have fun and not, like, overwhelm yourself or burn yourself out. That's what we're here for.
That's our pleasure, not that, Susan. That's our pleasure.
So thank you so much for your review, guys. Keep the reviews coming. We absolutely love them. They really help us to get our podcast out there. It helps Apple and Spotify will share us a little more. So little things like that, just they go a long way. So we really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ditto. Should we go into the BS of the week, the grievance, if you will?
Ooh, we should, because we're grieving.
So this is another. How long have we been focused on spring energy? So the last few weeks, right?
I feel like it's been going on for almost like 6 weeks. I got an email about it when it first happened, and I'm going to find that email. But like, I first heard about it like through an email of like just this Reddit post, and I was like, it's like once Reddit gets on something, we might need to figure out what it is.
Yes. So if you're not a runner or an endurance athlete, maybe you like spring energy and you're not in either of those modalities. So spring energy is a brand of a fueling gel, right? And we utilize this on our runs, cycling, et cetera, et cetera. And they have real food. Like that is their selling item. That it's pretty, from what I've tasted, pretty delicious, real food option for a gel. And the claims on the gels are the nutrition labels are stating a higher carb and calorie count than what was tested in a lab. Yes, it got to the point, I suppose. I think exactly what happened was somebody wanted to recreate the spring energy gel. And this person tried and was like, wait a second, this is like half the calories or less than that, and only 14 grams of carbs, or 17. I may be mistaking that figure, versus 45 grams. And specifically, the flavor was the awesome sauce flavor,
which was my favorite sauce. And
it's
like
a mediocre sauce at best now.
I know. But so like, and the really the linchpin that started all this was like, we as a community, a lot of people would say, hey, I'm taking this gel and I don't feel as fueled as I should be by that much, intake, right? Because I took it. I loved the gel. I would take it sometimes before a run because it was like an applesauce, but then I would take it during my runs. And there was a lot of times I would take it and like 20 minutes later, 10 minutes later, I'd be like, I need more. And then it wasn't until I found SIS beta gels, which claimed to have 40. And I mean, now I don't believe anyone ever again in my life. I feel, violated. But like, I take those and like 30 minutes later, I can last 30 minutes. It feels like it really satisfies me. And so once I heard this, I was like, oh, because this is how I feel. And now I have data kind of validating that. Like, I'm sort of now believing this. And I recommended this gel to athletes all the time because I was like, we love real food, spring energy gels. Let's get on it because it's real food and it tastes delicious. So now, some athletes have probably bonked in races. So many people are probably bonked in races, taking this, thinking they're crushing their fueling when they're taking 1/3, 1/2.
I'm also curious. And I also shared it with my athletes as well. And it was promoted as, or marketed as, a fuel option that you didn't necessarily need to have water on hand to take. And that's a big selling point for gels. Spring Energy hasn't put out an official, we're sorry for taking $4.20 from you every time you thought you were getting 3 times the amount of carbs statement. So Spring Energy, if you're listening, between two coaches, you can make that apology here. You sure can. Okay? Okay? That's that bullshit, though.
That's that bullshit.
Trust no one.
No, I have no trust in gels. Like, I'm just going to question them all. I'm going to be like, I don't know anymore. Like,
it goes beyond gels, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's giving I'm not as full as I should be. So, sucks. But I'm glad someone did the research. I'm glad someone helped validate probably hundreds, if not thousands, of runners' feelings of taking this gel and being like, why am I still bonking? Why am I not fueled properly? What's going on?
Yes. And shout out to that individual and the GoFundMe page they created. That was the way the community came together. They just started to throw their dollars in.
Oh,
Him,
once Reddit gets on something.
oh yeah, they're like to every gel. All right, I think it's topic time.
It is topic time. We love this part.
So today's topic is about imposter syndrome in fitness and in running. And I think it's important that we start with our individual experiences in imposter syndrome. Do you want to go first, Nick?
Thank you. I would love to go first. Yeah, so I have seen it in like multiple ways. So like, I there was a lot of my career I happened to be, just a little genetically blessed, trained hard. I'm a front of the pack runner, right? Like I'd get into a lot of elite fields. I was a part of Rabbit had an elite team for a little bit, the running brand, and I was a part of that team. And like I never felt like I belonged in an elite field. Like I always felt like while I could hit the times, I was always on the lower end. Like when I got to the races, my appearance did not look like other male elites. You can I won't really specify per se, but just like my body type versus others, it looked different. And there's a lot of times I got in these fields and I psyched myself out as I don't belong here. What am I doing? I don't train like these people. I'm not as fast as these people. It really limited me. There's a lot of races I probably psyched myself out anxiety wise when I got there, when I saw someone who looked different than me, and I was like, I can't run, I can't be in this field, right? And so I also then became a coach, and I was lucky to I had some athletes who were fast, and last two Olympic trials I had someone in the race. I've been lucky to coach some athletes who've been in world major professional fields, and when we get to these professional coach meetings, like I look around and you see all the greatest coaches in running, and I'm like in this room and like instantly feeling like an imposter, right? And feeling like I do not belong here. I'm just some software engineer who decided to be coaching. Happened to be in this room with the people who are much smarter and probably have done this their whole lives, and science and school and everything. And so, both times it really, like, it would get to me a lot, right? And like really get in my head. And so in both examples, it was like this feeling of I'm not good enough. I don't belong. Can't be as good as others. And so, what sort of then helped me was sort of acknowledging myself and my talents, right? And that I have a reason to be here. Like in running, I trained differently than others and looked differently because that's what I needed to have success, right? As a coach, I'm empathetic and supportive and understand my athletes as human beings and their needs. And that's why I belong here and why my athletes have success. And so what really helped me kind of break through this was acknowledging my strengths and understanding and acknowledging those versus like, this is why I belong versus like my weaknesses, meaning, hey, you don't belong because you're not this, or this, right? There, in the end of the day, I was there. I was invited to elite fields. I was invited to these meetings. I coached athletes in these. I coach athletes, and I belong because of the strengths I have. And so, it wasn't easy, but like really leaning into what I do well and why that is who I am really helped me break away from I'm not this, so I can't be this. I can't belong, right?
My goodness, it's so strange to hear it, and and we're going to get into this later. It's so strange to hear it on the side of we know how capable Coach Nick is as a runner and as a professional. And I like to say that I often say this to my clients who are experiencing imposter syndrome. I'm like, it's always the people who have the least business believing they're the imposter who should feel like an imposter. It's always those who believe there's something else who should have the syndrome. It's just a personal feeling. It's a personal feeling. But I'm going to piggyback off of how your share, in that my experience also was professional and personal. When I first auditioned for group fitness, specifically, we'll go into the strength based formats that I teach. As a small, straight sized bodied woman, I I don't look like somebody who lifts heavy weights. And years ago, when I first started taking group fitness classes, even before I started my professional career in group fitness, the instructors often would suggest I start with 3 to 5 pound dumbbells. Years ago, when I first started teaching, I was often confused for the bar or the yoga teacher.
Ooh.
And there's nothing wrong with those things, right? There is something wrong with assuming my fitness based on how I look. There is something wrong with assuming somebody's ability based on how they look. So I assume nothing. Not now, I did then, but now with more confidence. I assume nothing when a person enters my studio, or when someone jumps on the treadmill, or when someone decides that they want to start working with me. Because strength knows no size, endurance knows no size. So coming out, it required me to continue to put myself in positions where I would take up space where I was initially uncomfortable. And then I found that I did belong there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think. I mean, it's. I think at the end of the day, we all, everyone, I mean, says some sort of imposter syndrome of
True.
something.
Whether or not they say it.
Yeah, I think like, and then, it's just this feeling of like sometimes things happen and we don't feel like we belong in this way, either from our own like insecurities or from the way the group portrays itself or anything, right? And so I think helping people through imposter syndrome, you can help by sharing, right? I think people think, oh, you're so fast, you would never feel like an imposter, or like you've been doing this your whole career. Like, how could you ever feel like an imposter? And it's like we could still wake up some days and feel like imposters because of something that triggers us or something that we like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this thing. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe this, right? And so finding ways through it is all that matters, but it doesn't mean it doesn't still affect us, and it doesn't really come up at times when we think it shouldn't.
It limits us because it impacts our mindset around training. So we're less likely to take risks, whether that's signing up for a race, joining a group for a run, or just showing up to a group fitness class. So, to your point, it can impact us mentally, whether or not it is impacting us mentally, period.
Yeah.
And then that shows up physically.
Yep. It limits us also by, it makes you feel like you're not doing enough. You're always trying to be perfect in training, right? Like perfectionism is such a part of imposter syndrome, right? If we're not perfect, we're an imposter, right? We don't belong. Like, and so often people expect perfection at all times. And like sometimes that level is even like, it's not just showing up every day and doing the workouts. It's, well, the workouts have to be perfect, or
Right.
I don't belong, or I'm not hitting my numbers in cycling or running or whatever. I don't, I'm an imposter. It's not perfect. And so it makes you do more, right? Then all of a sudden you're, oh, well, that's not enough. I'm going to do more. I'm going to do doubles. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to sacrifice all these things I love because I need to be perfect.
Right, and it's who's defining perfect? Who's writing these rules? Are we basing this idea of perfection or fitness on what other people are doing whose lives don't look like ours?
Usually, I mean,
Yeah.
it's always, perfectionism and being perfect. There is no way that your trainees look. There's no like right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we look at, we compare to people around us, to others, to anything we can, and now social media opens that up to like the world. We compare to every single person on here, and we're like, they're doing more. They're more perfect than us. Not even knowing any of their story, but just knowing that like this 8-second clip of their workout, and you're like, oh, yeah. And so like it just really, really limits you. And like, I think also it helps. I think a lot of the times what imposter syndrome does in fitness, at least, is it makes you feel like you aren't a real athlete, a real runner, a real lifter, like a real cycler, whatever it is, right? Like, and then why that matters is because then you stop doing the things that athletes need to do. You don't fuel your body right. You don't take gels because, you're just, you're not a real athlete. You're not a real, whatever. You don't hire a coach, because I'm not good enough to have a personal trainer or coach. You don't get the right equipment that you need because you're not good enough for it. You don't join up and train with others, which is sometimes a benefit for a lot of people because you don't feel like you're worthy of that because you're good enough, right? And so when you feel like an imposter, you sort of disconnect almost from the things that make you that, right? Like as athletes, these are all things you need to do, but if you don't feel like one, you're more likely not to do the things you need to do because, I'm not an athlete, so I don't need to fuel like that.
That is so well said.
Well,
That is so
thanks.
well said. I just hope that, and there are so many ways that we as coaches observe this in our own athletes, in the fitness community, the running community in general, on social media. I think you mentioned earlier there in the running community, I observe it with those who identify and those who put out numbers that one would consider back of the pack runners, or as well as runners who aren't in a straight sized body, as you were mentioning about your story earlier, or what they see in, I would say in runner's world, they've been a little bit better runner's world. And in the gym, women at the gym, I see it with women at the gym, specifically those around weights, they often feel like they don't belong there, either with their body language or they just say it. They say it to me. So the worthiness of taking up any space in maybe a male dominated environment can also be something that compromises their fitness long term, because to what you were saying earlier, they're showing up less in these spaces, they're taking less risks.
Yeah,
Healthy risks.
Yes, healthy risks for sure. That's a good clarifying point. But yeah, that's exactly right. And I think we observe it. Social media is a great. As coaches, we see it a lot in our athletes, but we also see it so much on social media. And so, we always see athletes making disqualifying statements about themselves. Like you said, I'm a slower runner. You wouldn't want to work with me. Like I hear that a lot. That matters somehow. Like to me as a coach, I don't care what your PR or your pace is. Like, do you care about this sport? Do you care about running? Do you love it? Then do you want someone to support and cheer for you? Sure, then you've met every single criteria I have. I don't care what your pace is. I don't even ask most athletes on the phone about their PRs or anything.
It's not relevant.
Yeah, it's not. It's just, yeah. And so, that seems to be prevalent on social media. A lot of people, always want to put in their, and there's many reasons they do this, but I know one of them is imposter syndrome. They'll put things like, I am just negative connotation, like I'm an average runner, I'm just a slow runner. They'll put it in their profile, and I gotta tell you, honey, if you're chasing your goals, there's nothing average about you, right? And that's I see it so often. I'm just running a 5K.
You are awesome sauce.
You are awesome sauce, the real one.
But
not the one that has less.
Not
carbs.
mediocre sauce.
Not mediocre.
You're
sauce.
awesome sauce.
The one that should have been made that wasn't. But I feel like sometimes people do this and they think oh well, I just want to. I'm not putting myself down. I'm just clarifying myself. But in reality, it's baked with imposter syndrome because they don't feel like they belong and they're disqualifying themselves by saying I'm just average. I'm slow. I'm back of the pack. You're training, you're running, you're lifting, you're doing all this stuff. No one there's so little of the population that actually does exercise and lift and do this stuff. If you're doing it and you're showing up and you're giving your best,
30% in the US, 30%.
Yeah. So 70% aren't. So there's nothing average. You're better than average by just showing up and working out. So don't put yourself down, because then it's easy to let that statement control you and control how you act and control how you are a part of the community that you want to be.
Words have power.
Words have power. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think people realize how impactful talking to yourself is. The only relationship that matters in your whole life is the one you have with yourself, right? That's the most important one, because you can be nice to yourself. We choose not to most of the time, but you can make that a great relationship.
That is precisely why our sport, running, fitness, exercise, is not therapy.
Yep.
And why it's so important to continue to put yourself in positions where you are improving your mental health on outside of fitness. That way, when you're engaging in fitness, you can talk yourself through what you know will be challenging moments throughout your journey. You know they're going to come up. So I think that's a perfect example of positive self-talk and how that lends itself to fitness. But you got to have that down. You got to have the thing in your head down before you step outside.
Yeah, and that's why we always say, stress is stress. So, when stress is happening in your life, it's impacting your fitness. So when you're putting yourself down outside your life, you're negative to yourself, you're negative to your training, you're negative to everything. Like, how are you going to react when it's a tough moment in a race or in a tough moment in a class or a tough lift or whatever it is, like a tough moment in fitness? How are you going to react? You're probably going to be more negative because that's the messaging you're telling yourself outside of sport. And the person you are outside of sport is the same person you are in sport. So don't try and disconnect and be like, oh, I'll be nice to myself during sport athletics, but outside I'm going to beat myself up. No, be nice to yourself outside athletics. So you can be nice to yourself when you need to in athletics. And, the last thing I'll say to this, what I see is, people discredit their accomplishments as luck. They don't accept positive feedback. They shrug it off. Like, that, and I do that sometimes too. Like, sometimes someone will say, that was so cool, great job, or this and that. And I'll be like, oh, whatever. Like, and I've tried to be better about saying thank you, or like, I appreciate that. Like when someone says something nice or positive about my athletics or anything in my life. And, when you discredit your accomplishments as luck, you're just saying, almost telling yourself, I didn't really do it. Like, no, you did it. It doesn't matter. Like, you did the work, you ran the race, nothing was luck about it. Own that shit, take credit for it, be proud of it, wear that medal, brag about it on social media. That's what it's for. Like, you did this stuff. Don't push away your accomplishments. That's the imposter in you trying to tell you that you don't belong. It's trying to tell you that we're going to find out that you don't really belong here. You're not really good at this. You're good. You're great.
That was so good. And it reminded me of even in the beginning of this podcast when you asked me about Brooklyn. And I have every season of my life got a little better at just saying thank you to the compliment and not saying, yeah, I had a good day. Because in my mind, when I hear I had a good day, the asterisk is luck. And while we know, for example, a race or a workout, there are so many things that are out of your control once you step outside your home, or maybe you're doing your at-home workout, but that you worked your ass off to be present for that. And you should take that credit, as Coach Nick is saying.
Yeah. And, Coach Amanda didn't necessarily want to talk a lot about real life stuff or her training, but as soon as she, told me about this race, I immediately put on the Google Doc, so we had to talk about it, her race, because, and you're doing a great job of talking about your running and talking about your accomplishments and being proud of it, because you should own that shit. Just like we're telling everyone else.
It's giving me a lot of agita right now.
But
my indigestion is mediocre sauce.
But you're
you're right. You're right.
We're proud of you for doing that. And thank you for talking about it. And yeah, just like everyone else, you're not discrediting your accomplishment. You are saying, I did this shit. And accomplishment doesn't have to mean a PR. Just going out there and trying your best is an accomplishment. And you should own that and be proud of yourself.
That's it. That's it right there. So I think that moves us into the ways that we, as a community, how we can help each other feel less imposter-esque.
Yeah.
And I want to say, based on what we just shared, celebrate every start. Everybody for showing up exactly as they are, where they are. We all started somewhere. To remember that. And as you continue through your fitness journey, know that you will always be in a position where you will never have it all figured out.
Nope.
And that you're not supposed to. And that would be really boring if we did, right? We have to quote unquote fail. We have to make errors.
That's how we grow.
Yeah.
Jinx. Oh, we did it again.
We did that. Knock on exposed brick. New York City, if you know, you know. So I would start with that. And as we were talking about earlier, participate in group fitness classes.
Yes.
Participate in group runs that you identify with, that make you feel safe and accepted. So a big thing that we see in the running community is that we want to make sure that when we're joining a run group, that their beliefs, their paces are ones that we feel like we can be a part of. So an example of this is I just had a conversation with a client actually who wanted to join a group run, and some of the things we went over were finding out what paces are supported in that run, because while we can advertise all paces are welcome, and the same thing in a group fitness class that isn't running related, all levels are welcomed. I would get the fine print from the leader of said group or class.
Yeah.
So that would be the second thing I would say. Do you want to? I have other things, but Nick, what do you think?
So, along the same lines you're having, encouraging and being welcome of all runners, new and experienced, all athletes, regardless of pace, what they lift, how they cycle, like whatever. Like, there are so many opportunities to encourage someone new in this sport. Like, running is going through an era. Like, people are running more than ever. This was, 20 years ago when I would run, I'd never see anyone, and now I can't go anywhere without seeing runners, and it's amazing and it's so cool. And I think too often people aren't as welcoming as they think they are, and it makes people feel like imposters. And to your point about group runs, sometimes it says all paces are welcome, but not 10-minute pace because no one's going to run that. Well, that doesn't mean all paces are welcome. Like, it is on the leader of the group to make sure that no matter what pace someone runs, they have at least someone to run with, and if it's not someone in that group, it's you, right? So if you can't do that, then don't call your run.
Can't advertise it.
Yeah, then your run is an 8-minute pace or faster run, and then people will not show up because don't have someone come to a run and get lost and get left behind. That is the most miserable feeling, and it will make someone feel like an imposter in this sport and not want to participate. But like, just the way we talk about running, just the way we talk about athletics, just the way we talk about fitness, sometimes we can act elitist. We can act like our experience makes people feel like they can't participate the way they want to because it has to be a certain way, right? I think we do that too often. It's like, no, you have to run. Like, this is how we run. We go to a group, we do this and this and this. And like, people are out here, like, maybe they're making content. Maybe they enjoy running in a different way. And too often people put that down as, well, that's not real running. That's not real exercise. Like, who are we to judge? But again, if someone enjoys something in their own way, encourage that. You don't have to necessarily do it with them, but like, when we put people down and push them away, we then make them feel again like they're not part of this community. So a lot of my stuff is just, be welcoming, be encouraging, understand that new people coming into athletics and fitness don't have the same approach to you, may not do it the same way, and that's okay. Let them have their fun and just be supportive.
Be supportive. And on the flip side, when you're entering these communities, I think that you have to support yourself outside of whatever sport you plan to engage more in because you enjoy it. And one of the ways that I see this come up as a coach are folks who tend to feel like imposters in their sport of choice apologize a lot. Yeah. As you were sharing earlier, they're apologizing for slowing down speed, or for lowering their dumbbells, for taking up space. And what I know is that this habit of apologizing, as we were sharing earlier, is also happening in their lives, right? Outside of fitness. So stop apologizing for meeting yourself where you're at today. Stop apologizing for knowing your body well enough to know I can push here or I got to pull back here. This is all a form of self-advocacy, yes, which is critically important for our longevity in whatever fitness modality we take part in.
Love that. Dead on. That was so good. That was so well spoken. That was so right. That was so right there. Like, that's the stuff.
I feel some type of way about it. It's more than awesome. It's at least 50 to 60 grams of carbs. Did we do it?
We did. I think we did. Let me check. No, we did it. We did it. Yep. I checked it somewhere.
Somebody take away Nick's access to Google Docs. Just give me one day off from the Google Doc.
I'm making a new doc as we speak.
I'm Before we get into our final outro, I do want to say that we're so grateful for your reviews and your support and your shares and letting somebody you know and love, or maybe you don't love them, maybe you just want to irritate them for 45 minutes at a given time. And by irritate, I mean show that you love them with our voices via the podcast. But we also have shared on our Instagram bios, and I suppose you could put it in the show notes as well, buy me a coffee link. And this is an opportunity for you to spend as little and as much as you want in supporting us, because it does cost money to show up here and we love doing it, but we also know that you love supporting us. So we created a way for you to do that. And for those of you who have supported us already, we thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, it's just, we appreciate everything you guys are doing. Every comment, every review we read, every time we see someone post about our podcast or send us a text message, like we send it to each other. We did not realize, we just were like, hey, let's talk about coaching, and then we were touched by how much all of you have like shown up and been supportive and like been rooting for us, and it means the world. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But yeah, so I'll wrap up the episode. So we had a great episode. We touched on our topic on imposter syndrome with a bunch of, I think, wonderful nuggets that you can pull out of that for your own journey and your own battle through imposter syndrome, and just the acknowledgement that everyone, and here's our stories, I thought was great to share. We answered a great question about cadence. We shared some real life stuff, like Amanda's big day in Brooklyn. And we grieved and talked a lot about spring energy gels, and you can listen to that amazing part of why you are been lied to, and why, if you felt shitty on your runs, it's not you, it's the gel.
It's the gel. It could be you.
It could be you too,
depending on who you are, I guess. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, you can reach out to us on the gram or via email at between2, that's TWO coaches @gmail.com. We'll see you next time.
Bye.